Think about the very first thing you do when you open your eyes in the morning. For the vast majority of us, before our feet even touch the cold floor, before we have even taken a single conscious breath to welcome the new day, our hands instinctively reach out for our smartphones. Within seconds, our minds are bombarded by an aggressive tidal wave of digital inputs. We see urgent news headlines, work emails, demanding immediate replies, flashing notifications from social media platforms, and endless streams of short videos filled with loud music and dramatic captions. We fill our minds with the chaotic noise of the outer world before we even have a chance to understand what is happening inside our own hearts. We have become a society that is deeply terrified of quietness. We treat a single moment of emptiness as a critical emergency that must be solved immediately by scrolling through a screen. We have allowed the modern world to convince us that being busy is a badge of honor and that constant stimulation is the only way to feel alive. But underneath this frantic digital lifestyle, a quiet crisis is unfolding. Our minds are chronically exhausted, our attention is hopelessly fragmented, and our emotional wounds are left neglected beneath a thick layer of superficial entertainment. We are constantly running, constantly consuming, and constantly shouting into the digital void, yet we feel strangely hollow, anxious, and disconnected from our true selves. Welcome back to Everyday Better You, the dedicated sanctuary where we step away from the overwhelming chaos of the modern landscape to reclaim the sovereign ownership of our mental clarity and emotional strength. Our foundational guiding light remains beautifully simple and steady. Every day, better by 1%. We do not believe in superficial fixes, empty motivational slogans, or overnight psychological transformations. Instead, we recognize that true, lasting growth is built through the small, intentional choices we make in our daily habits. Today, we are opening the door to a profound concept that runs completely counter to the fast-paced, high-volume culture we live in. We are going to explore the art of emotional recovery through intentional detachment. We are going to talk about why your heart desperately needs you to step away from the screen, put down the device, and find the courage to sit in an empty space. This conversation is not a lecture on productivity, nor is it an academic study on technology. This is a real, grounded, and deeply human invitation to slow down, disconnect from the endless chatter, and discover the transformative power of quiet emotional recovery. Let us unpack the layers of this invisible modern trap and learn how to heal, step by step, day by day, in the beautiful depth of quiet contemplation. Part 1. The modern dread of quietness. We live in an era where sound has become a constant addiction, an invisible security blanket that we wrap around ourselves to avoid an underlying sense of internal discomfort. Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable it feels when you walk into your home and the house is completely quiet? Your immediate instinct is likely to turn on the television just for background sound or to connect your phone to a speaker to play music while you cook dinner. When we get into our cars to drive to work, we instantly turn on the radio or start a podcast. When we go for a walk or exercise at the gym, we shove headphones into our ears to ensure that not a single second of our journey is left unmediated by external audio. We have developed an intense psychological intolerance for the absence of sound. We treat quietness as a frightening vacuum that must be filled immediately. But we must ask ourselves a deeply honest question. What exactly are we running away from? As modern focus mentors have accurately observed, noise is the ultimate distraction we use to avoid facing the unhealed corners of our own hearts. This means that noise is the ultimate distraction we use to avoid facing the unhealed corners of our own hearts. To truly understand why we dread quietness so intensely, we must look at what happens when the external sound stops. When you turn off the television, put away your phone, and sit alone in an empty room, the protective barrier between you and your inner world completely dissolves. In that sudden absence of external distraction, everything you have been suppressing using digital noise rushes to the surface of your awareness. The low-grade anxiety about your career, the buried grief of a broken relationship, the lingering guilt over a mistake you made years ago, and the profound uncertainty about your future all start knocking on the door of your mind. The noise of the world acts as a cheap psychological anesthesia. It does not cure your emotional pain. It simply numbs you to its existence by keeping your brain fully occupied with irrelevant data. The moment the anesthesia wears off, the pain returns with its full weight. This is why many people experience a sudden wave of restlessness or anxiety when they try to sit quietly. They mistake this discomfort for a sign that quietness is bad for them, when in reality, it is a clear sign that their inner house is in desperate need of cleaning. The core mistake that millions of people make every single day is believing that they can run away from their internal conflicts forever by simply keeping the volume of their lives turned up to the maximum. We see individuals who bounce from one distraction to another, constantly checking updates, listening to streams, and participating in endless digital discussions. They are terrified of being left alone with their thoughts for even 5 minutes. But this constant avoidance comes at a massive cognitive and emotional price. When you refuse to face your internal conflicts, they do not disappear. Instead, they ferment in the deep basement of your subconscious mind, manifesting as chronic irritability, unexplainable fatigue, constant anxiety, and an inability to feel genuinely happy even when things are going well in your life. The brilliant modern philosopher Naval Ravikant beautifully captured the essence of true internal alignment when he remarked that a happy person isn't someone who's happy all the time. It's someone who can interpret reality without losing their inner peace. This reminds us that a happy person is not someone who is happy all the time, but someone who can interpret reality without losing their inner peace. You can never achieve that beautiful state of inner peace if you are constantly using digital clutter to drown out the voice of your own mind. To overcome this modern dread and make your 1% progress today on our Everyday Better You journey, you must stop treating quietness as an enemy and begin treating it as a vital diagnostic tool. You need to build a regular habit of inviting quietness into your life, even if it feels incredibly uncomfortable at first. Start by dedicating just 10 minutes every afternoon to absolute external stillness. Turn off your phone, close your computer screen, turn off any music or television, and simply sit comfortably on a chair. Do not try to force your mind to go blank, and do not try to control your thoughts. Just watch whatever thoughts, anxieties, or emotions arise with an attitude of curiosity rather than judgment. If a wave of sadness or worry washes over you, do not run back to your phone to escape it. Instead, breathe deeply, acknowledge the feeling, and say to yourself, I am present and I am listening to what my mind is trying to tell me. By choosing to face the stillness rather than running away from it, you begin to break your dependency on digital anesthesia. You start the necessary process of emotional house cleaning, clearing out the accumulated mental debris to make room for a deeper, more grounded sense of clarity and strength. Part 2. The exhaustion of forced positivity. In our hyper-connected modern world, the process of self-improvement and emotional recovery has been deeply distorted by the culture of social media. We are constantly exposed to an idealized, heavily curated version of personal growth that we can call forced positivity. Every time we log online, we see lifestyle influencers broadcasting their perfect morning routines, chanting highly aggressive daily affirmations, and posting aesthetic pictures of their journals next to expensive cups of coffee. We are bombarded by messages telling us that we must stay motivated every single second, that we should always look on the bright side, and that any negative emotion is a sign of personal weakness or low vibration. This cultural phenomenon creates an immense, exhausting pressure to perform our healing for an audience. We feel that if we are going through a difficult time, we must immediately find a way to spin it into an inspiring story, post a quote about resilience, or quickly fix it so we can get back to being productive. But this public, performative approach completely misses the point of how human emotions actually function. As deep-thinking cultural analysts remind us, true transformation does not demand an audience. It requests your absolute presence in the dark. This means that true transformation does not demand an audience. It requests your absolute presence in the dark. The great danger of forced positivity is that it forces us to practice emotional toxic avoidance. When you feel a profound sense of sadness, exhaustion, or grief, that emotion is a valid biological signal from your nervous system telling you that something in your life requires deep attention, rest, or realignment. However, when you buy into the myth of constant positivity, you treat these natural human emotions as defects that must be hidden or quickly wiped away. You put on a fake smile, repeat affirmations that you do not actually believe, and try to force yourself to feel happy before you have actually processed the root cause of your pain. This does not lead to genuine emotional recovery. It leads to a state of profound internal division. You are essentially painting over a rotting wall with a fresh coat of bright paint and pretending that the structure is solid. Eventually, the rot will bleed through the paint and the structural damage will be much worse than it was before. Forced positivity turns our emotional lives into a shallow marketing campaign, leaving us completely disconnected from our authentic experiences. The common misconception that traps so many well-meaning people is the belief that healing is a loud, active, and highly visible process. We think that to get better, we must talk about it constantly, buy self-help books, share our vulnerabilities on digital platforms, and seek out a community to validate our progress. While sharing has its place, the deepest and most EDI, profound emotional recovery always takes place in total privacy, away from the gaze of anyone else. It happens in the quiet moments when you are alone in your room, allowing yourself to weep without needing to explain why to a follower base. It happens when you admit to yourself that you are completely lost, tired, and broken without trying to instantly fix it with a positive quote. The pioneering psychologist Carl Jung famously wrote a truth that cuts right through our modern culture of performative enlightenment when he stated, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This clearly demonstrates that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You cannot heal what you refuse to look at, and you cannot look at your inner darkness when you are constantly blinding yourself with the artificial glare of forced positivity. To free yourself from this exhausting performance and advance by 1% today, you must give yourself full permission to drop the mask of being okay. On the Everyday Better You journey, we value raw authenticity far more than toxic optimism. The next time you find yourself entering a period of emotional exhaustion or deep sadness, resist the urge to find an immediate positive spin or to browse online for motivational pick-me-ups. Instead, step into a quiet, private space and deliberately choose to honor your pain. Let your nervous system wind down completely. If you feel like sitting on the floor and doing absolutely nothing for an hour, do exactly that. If you need to rest in bed for an entire weekend to recover from a long period of burnout, allow yourself that grace without a single ounce of guilt. Stop trying to document your recovery or prove to the world that you are growing. Let your transformation be a private conversation between you and your soul. By allowing yourself to be present in your dark moments without the pressure to perform, you allow your natural psychological healing mechanisms to take over, rebuilding an unshakable inner resilience that does not depend on a fake smile. Part 3. Breaking the addiction to external validation. We live in a culture that has institutionalized the seeking of approval from others. Through the architecture of modern social networks, we have been conditioned to outsource our self-esteem to a system of likes, comments, shares, and views. This constant craving for external approval is not just confined to our achievements or our physical appearance. It has deeply infected how we handle our personal struggles and emotional pain. When we experience a setback, a breakup, or a period of intense loneliness, our immediate digital impulse is often to share a cryptic status update, post an emotional story, or talk about our struggles in online forums. We do this under the guise of seeking support, but if we look closer at our underlying motives, we are often looking for a quick hit of digital sympathy to soothe our immediate discomfort. As modern Stoic thinkers deeply warn us, seeking validation for your pain from the crowd only leaves you vulnerable to the changing winds of their opinions. This highlights that seeking validation for your pain from the crowd only leaves you vulnerable to the changing winds of their opinions. The core psychological problem with relying on the digital crowd for emotional comfort is that public validation is an incredibly shallow and temporary fix. When you post about your pain and receive 40 comments of sympathy, your brain experiences a temporary surge of connection and relief. But that relief is incredibly short-lived because it does not address the foundational wound inside you. It is the psychological equivalent of putting a tiny adhesive bandage on a deep internal injury. Furthermore, by constantly presenting your personal wounds to the public, you give up your emotional autonomy. You become completely dependent on how other people respond to your life. If the crowd gives you plenty of attention, you feel validated and comforted. If your post is met with indifference or a lack of engagement, you feel even more isolated, rejected, and miserable than you did before you posted it. You have effectively handed the control panel of your emotional well-being over to an unpredictable, distracted audience that doesn't actually know you. The profound mistake that many people make in our modern society is believing that their emotional experiences are only real or valuable if they are witnessed and validated by others. We feel an unconscious urge to broadcast our life choices, our healing breakthroughs, and our daily struggles because we have forgotten how to sit with our own experiences in total privacy. This continuous externalization of our inner life starves our soul of depth. When you instantly turn an internal experience into a piece of public content, you strip it of its transformative power. You stop digesting the lesson yourself because you are too busy managing how the lesson looks to the public. The ancient Roman emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius offered a timeless alternative to this hollow way of living when he wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up. if thou wilt ever dig. This means that, look, within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if you will ever dig. The crowd can never provide you with the deep, lasting emotional security that you can only find by digging into the bedrock of your own character. To break this addiction to validation and elevate your mind by 1% today, you must build a firm habit of keeping your deepest emotional processing completely sacred and private. When you make a major breakthrough in your personal growth, or when you are dealing with a difficult emotional challenge, make a conscious choice not to tell a single person online about it. Keep it as your beautiful personal secret. Invest your energy into writing your raw, uncensored thoughts in a private journal that no one else will ever see. Cry your tears, celebrate your small internal victories, and map out your personal recovery plan in total solitude. By keeping your healing journey hidden from the public eye, you force yourself to seek validation from the only person whose opinion truly matters, yourself. You learn to trust your own judgment, appreciate your own strength, and build an authentic inner fortress that remains completely untouched by the fickle praise or indifference of the outside world. Part 4. Processing the unspoken emotions. Human emotions are not abstract ideas that exist solely in our minds. They are intense, physical, and biological realities that live within our bodies. When you experience a profound emotional trauma, a long period of chronic stress, or a deep disappointment, that experience triggers a complex cascade of physiological changes in your nervous system. Your muscles tighten, your heart rate shifts, and your body stores that unresolved energy. To truly heal and release that heavy energy, an emotion must be fully felt, acknowledged, and digested through conscious processing. However, the modern digital environment is perfectly designed to disrupt this vital process. Whenever a heavy, painful, or uncomfortable emotion starts to rise within us, we immediately reach for our phones to drown it out with entertainment, news, or games. We never allow our emotions to complete their natural life cycle. As modern mental health experts wisely observe, you cannot outrun a heavy heart by turning up the volume of the world. You must sit with it until the storm passes. This emphasizes that you cannot outrun a heavy heart by turning up the volume of the world. You must sit with it until the storm passes. The primary error that most people make when dealing with emotional pain is attempting to intellectually bypass it or analyze it away using the internet. We spend hours scrolling through psychological articles, reading self-help advice columns, or listening to endless discussions about mental health, trying to find a neat clinical label for our pain. We think that if we can understand our trauma intellectually, we will magically be cured. But understanding an emotion is not the same thing as feeling it. By keeping our brains busy with information about healing, we are actually practicing another sophisticated form of emotional avoidance. We are staying up in our heads because we are terrified of dropping down into our bodies to feel the physical ache of our sorrow, our anger, or our loneliness. This unresolved emotional energy remains completely trapped in our bodies, building up over time until it eventually manifests as chronic physical fatigue, muscle pain, digestive issues, or sudden bursts of emotional overwhelm that seem to come out of nowhere. The misconception that prevents true recovery is the idea that experiencing negative emotions is a dangerous process that will break us if we let it. We are so coddled by the instant comfort of modern technology that we treat emotional pain as a system malfunction that needs to be deleted immediately. But pain is not a malfunction, it is a necessary part of the human experience. When you sit in total quietness and allow a heavy emotion to rise without trying to distract yourself, something remarkable happens. The emotion may feel incredibly intense, heavy, and overwhelming for a few minutes, but if you do not run away from it, it eventually reaches its peak and begins to naturally dissipate on its own. Emotions are like weather patterns. They roll in, darken the sky, and bring rain, but if you do not feed them with constant mental resistance, they will eventually move out of your system. The visionary teacher Eckhart Tolle pointed directly to this liberating truth when he taught that awareness is the greatest agent for change. This reminds us that awareness is the greatest agent for change. Your pure, non-judgmental awareness is the exact solvent that dissolves trapped emotional pain. To implement this profound shift and grow by 1% today, you must learn to practice the art of somatic emotional processing in total quietness. The next time you feel a heavy weight in your chest, a sudden wave of anxiety, or an unexplainable sadness, refuse to pick up your phone or turn on any background noise. Instead, lie down flat on your bed or sit comfortably in a quiet room. Close your eyes and shift your full attention away from your thoughts and down into your physical body. Locate exactly where the emotion is living. Is it a tightness in your throat, a heavy pressure on your chest, a knot in your stomach? Focus your awareness entirely on that physical sensation. Breathe deeply and directly into that area of your body, imagining that your breath is creating space around the discomfort. Do not try to change it, fix it, or make it go away. Simply allow it to be there, greeting it with absolute patience. By choosing to sit with your heavy heart in total quietness, you allow the trapped emotional storm to finally process through your nervous system, leaving you with a profound, authentic sense of internal lightness and lasting peace. Part 5. The Sacred Art of Disconnection. Our modern nervous systems are under constant, unprecedented assault. For the entire history of the human species, our ancestors lived in environments where information moved at the speed of nature. They experienced long periods of quietness, worked with their hands, and rested deeply when the sun went down. Today, we live in an artificial hyper-reality where we are plugged into a non-stop global stream of information 24 hours a day. Our brains are forced to process more data in a single week than a person living 3 centuries ago had to process in their entire lifetime. Every ping, buzz, ring, and red notification badge triggers a micro-startle response in our brains, keeping our sympathetic nervous system locked in a permanent state of low-grade fight-or-flight activation. We are living in a state of chronic neurological overload, and our capacity for deep thought, emotional stability, and creative inspiration is being completely crushed by the weight of this digital noise. As digital well-being experts clearly state, disconnecting from the endless digital chatter is the first step toward reconnecting with your fragmented soul. This means that disconnecting from the endless digital chatter is the first step toward reconnecting with your fragmented soul. The primary error that keeps us trapped in this state of exhaustion is the belief that we can maintain our mental health while remaining fully plugged into the digital grid. We think that as long as we follow positive accounts, listen to wellness podcasts, or use meditation apps, we can scroll through our feeds for hours without any negative consequences. But this is a massive delusion. The medium of the internet itself is inherently chaotic, fast-paced, and fragmenting. It does not matter how high quality the content is. If you are consuming hundreds of different ideas, images, and opinions every day, your mind will become scattered and overwhelmed. Your brain desperately needs extended periods of absolute cognitive rest where it is not required to process any new information whatsoever. Without these periods of deep disconnection, your mind remains hyper-vigilant and highly reactive, leaving you completely unable to access the deeper layers of your own intelligence or the calm waters of your true identity. The misconception that prevents people from unplugging is the fear that if they disconnect, they will miss out on something critical, fall behind in their careers, or become isolated from their social circles. We treat constant availability as a professional and social obligation, but this availability is actually a form of self-sabotage. When you are accessible to everyone at every second, you are accessible to yourself at no second. You turn into a purely reactive being, constantly responding to the demands, emergencies, and trivial whims of others while completely abandoning your own internal life. The insightful deep work author Cal Newport captured this reality perfectly when he noted, "Solitude requires you to move past the reactiveness of your mind and step into a space of deep, independent clarity." This shows that solitude requires you to move past the reactiveness of your mind and step into a space of deep, independent clarity. True clarity can never be found while you are standing in the middle of a digital highway. You must find the courage to step off the road and walk into the quiet wilderness of absolute disconnection. To practice this sacred art of disconnection and upgrade your mental health by 1% today, you must establish firm, non-negotiable boundaries between your mind and the digital grid on this everyday better you journey. Start by implementing a weekly digital Sabbath. Choose one day every single week, preferably a Saturday or a Sunday, where you completely turn off your smartphone, lock it in a desk drawer, and refuse to look at a single screen for a full 24 hours. Inform your family and close friends in advance that you will be completely offline during this window so they do not worry about you. Use this beautiful, spacious day to engage in slow, analog activities that nourish your nervous system. Read a physical book, write with a pen on paper, go for a long walk in nature without headphones, cook a healthy meal from scratch, or engage in deep, face-to-face conversations with the people you love. When you first turn off your phone, you will likely feel a strong wave of phantom anxiety and an urge to check your messages. Let that anxiety settle. As the hours pass, you will feel a profound, beautiful wave of peace washing over your mind as your nervous system finally drops out of chronic stress and returns to its natural state of deep-rooted stability. Part 6. Rebuilding the foundation of mental clarity. When we spend our lives fully immersed in the loud, frantic stream of the internet, our internal world becomes incredibly cluttered. We are constantly absorbing other people's opinions, adopting their beliefs, mimicking their language, and reacting to their emotional outrages. Over time, our minds become so crowded with this external noise that we completely lose track of our own authentic voice. We mistake the loud, chaotic thoughts in our heads for our own intellect, when in reality, they are merely the jumbled echoes of the digital crowd. True mental clarity requires that we intentionally clear away this external static so we can rebuild the solid foundation of our own independent thoughts. As deep thinking personal development coaches remind us, when you remove the external static, you finally hear the true direction of your own inner compass. This emphasizes that when you remove the external static, you finally hear the true direction of your own inner compass. To understand how to rebuild your mental clarity, you must think of your mind as a beautiful, clear mountain lake. When the environment is quiet and undisturbed, the surface of the lake becomes perfectly still, acting as a flawless mirror that reflects the reality around it and allowing you to look deep down through the clear water to see the stones at the very bottom. But when you constantly pelt the lake with stones, which represents the nonstop influx of digital notifications, headlines, and videos, the surface becomes wildly turbulent, muddying the water and making it completely impossible to see anything clearly. Most people are living with a heavily muddied mind. They are trying to make major, life-altering decisions about their careers, their relationships, and their values, while their mental water is in a state of chaotic disruption. They cannot see the truth of their situations because they are looking through a thick fog of digital distraction. By choosing to enter an extended period of quietness, you stop pelting your mind with external inputs, allowing the turbulent waters of your thoughts to naturally settle, clarify, and return to a state of absolute transparency. The primary error that people make when trying to find clarity is looking for answers outside of themselves. When they face an internal crisis or feel lost in life, they instantly open their browsers to search for answers, watch advice videos, or read self-help articles. They think that some external expert possesses the magic blueprint for their happiness. But this external search only adds more noise to an already overcrowded mind. The deepest, truest answers to the most important questions of your life can never be found on a screen. They can only be found by looking into the depth of your own character and experience. The great Roman Stoic philosopher Seneca offered a timeless warning against this anxious, outward dependency when he wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future." This reminds us that true happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future. When you cultivate absolute quietness, you stop anxiously looking outside of yourself for validation or direction, and you build the capacity to find contentment and clear guidance right where you stand. To implement this foundation of clarity and step forward by 1% today, you must treat your mind as a sacred temple and fiercely guard what you allow to enter it. Begin practicing the discipline of mental fasting. For the next 7 days, deliberately choose to cut your information consumption in half. Stop listening to podcasts while you do chores. Stop reading articles while you eat lunch. And stop scrolling through news feeds during breaks. Force your mind to operate in a clean, quiet environment for extended blocks of time throughout the day. Use these spacious, quiet windows to check in with yourself. Ask yourself deep, fundamental questions. What do I actually value in life? What goals am I pursuing out of genuine desire? And what goals am I pursuing just to impress others? What habits are serving my growth? And what habits are keeping me stagnant? Write down your raw, unfiltered reflections in your journal. By clearing out the external static, you allow the quiet voice of your own inner compass to become beautifully loud and clear, guiding your steps with unshakable certainty and authentic purpose. Part 7. Stepping back into the world with intent. The ultimate purpose of seeking quiet emotional recovery is not to completely abandon society, escape from our daily responsibilities, or become detached from the reality of the world. We do not retreat into the quietness to stay there forever. We retreat into the quietness so that we can eventually return to our lives as vastly stronger, wiser, and more effective human beings. period of quiet reflection is like pulling back the string of a powerful bow. You are not moving backward out of weakness. You are intentionally gathering massive potential energy so that when you release the string, you can fly forward with absolute precision and unshakable power. When you spend time in quiet contemplation, you undergo a profound internal alignment that completely alters how you show up in your daily life. As wise living mentors beautifully observe, you return to the world not louder, but grounded, anchored by a deep understanding of who you are. This shows that you return to the world not louder, but grounded, anchored by a deep understanding of who you are. When you return to your daily routine after prioritizing quiet emotional recovery, you will notice a magnificent shift in how you interact with the digital landscape. Before you cultivated quietness, you were likely a highly reactive person. Whenever a notification flashed on your screen, you instantly clicked it. Whenever someone expressed an opposing opinion online, you felt an intense urge to argue with them. Whenever a new digital trend appeared, you surged to join it. You were completely at the mercy of external stimuli. But once you have experienced the profound depth of quietness, you possess a solid psychological anchor. When you step back onto social platforms or enter busy work environments, you no longer catch every passing wave of digital panic or emotional outrage. You watch the chaos of the online world pass by with a calm sense of detachment. You choose exactly when to engage, when to speak, and when to completely ignore the noise, because you understand that your attention is far too valuable to be thrown away on trivial distractions. The common mistake that people make after a period of self-reflection is rushing back into their old, high-speed habits with the same intensity as before. They experience a beautiful breakthrough in a quiet weekend, but by Monday morning, they are once again checking their phones first thing in the morning, opening 20 browser tabs at once, and filling every second of downtime with digital consumption. Within a few days, their accumulated peace completely evaporates, and they find themselves right back in the same state of chronic anxiety and mental fatigue. We must understand that protecting our mental clarity is a continuous daily practice of boundaries. It cannot be fixed by a single retreat or a brief break. The ancient Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu provided the ultimate blueprint for this steady, sustainable approach to life when he taught that nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. This points directly to the truth that nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. True, lasting life transformation is never built through frantic, hurried bursts of energy. It is constructed through patient, deliberate consistency. To bring this entire journey to a powerful completion and establish your 1% daily growth today on the Everyday Better You path, you must design a structured transition strategy that infuses your quiet breakthroughs directly into your normal routine. Do not let the world rush you back into its chaotic pace. When you open your computer tomorrow, choose to work with absolute intent. Open only one tab at a time, take regular short breaks to stretch, and look out the window in total silence, and step away from your workspace entirely during lunch. Establish a strict digital curfew every single evening. Turn off your devices by 9 o'clock and spend the final hour of your day reading a physical book, stretching, or talking quietly with your loved ones. By consciously designing these small pockets of quietness into your daily schedule, you ensure that your inner fortress remains completely protected. You step back into the world, not as a loud, frantic echo of the crowd, but as a deeply grounded, unshakable author of your own destiny, moving forward with clear intent, step by step, day by day. We have journeyed together through a deeply profound and eye-opening exploration today, carefully dissecting the invisible digital forces that are continuously trying to fracture our focus and extract our psychological depth. We have looked at the modern dread of quietness that keeps us addicted to constant noise, the exhausting trap of forced positivity that prevents us from honoring our real human experiences, the destructive addiction to external validation that strips us of our emotional autonomy, the vital need to process our unspoken emotions within our physical bodies, the sacred discipline of total digital disconnection, the beautiful process of rebuilding our mental clarity from the ground up, and the art of stepping back into the busy world with absolute intention and grounded strength. Remember, you do not need to perform a massive, overwhelming overhaul of your lifestyle by tomorrow morning to reclaim your focus. True, authentic transformation is never built that way. As we bring this powerful episode of Everyday Better You to its natural close, let us look toward our steady, unchanging Northern Star. Every day better by 1%. Do not place an impossible burden on your shoulders to fix your entire digital relationship perfectly by tonight. Instead, focus entirely on winning just one small, conscious battle over the next few hours. Find the courage to leave your phone in another room while you eat dinner. Spend 10 minutes sitting comfortably in absolute silence before you go to sleep, or choose to step away from your devices an hour earlier tonight to give your nervous system a chance to deeply rest. Every single small choice to prioritize quietness is a magnificent declaration of your mental freedom. Thank you for taking this time to slow down, invest in the depth of your mind, and listen to the authentic voice of your soul with me today. Protect your attention fiercely, guard your inner peace with absolute dedication, and keep building a stronger, deeper, and truer version of yourself. Until next time, stay deeply intentional, stay beautifully grounded, and keep growing better every single day.